of the meeting, Shoal, but I would like to know what came out of it so we can reinforce it. Good morning. Is this on? Can you hear me? Oh, yes.
Yep.
Good morning. If everybody could get seated, we'll start our first public budget hearing of this budget. For those of you who have been to this before, you know that we are here to listen to you. The budget it has been out, and we have had comments from the city manager and from the mayor, and now we would like to hear your comments. We will, the procedure is we will introduce ourselves, we'll listen to you, and then we will wrap up. Each of the council members will wrap up with some brief comments. And we have another budget hearing next Saturday at the Mohart Center and the following Saturday out at the South Patrol Station. So we try to listen to each area of the city, and you're welcome to come to any and all of the hearings. We are asking that speakers limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Lisa Minardi, Ed Ford's assistant, will be the timekeeper today. This year, it's been interesting. We have kind of a consensus budget. The city manager and the mayor worked very hard together and pretty much agreed that the budget is what it is because it's pretty much what we can afford and maintains the programs that we have. The big issue this year is pension reform. I think you know that. We have some obligations, and so we are fulfilling those. What's going to be interesting is in April, you will have the opportunity to vote on a charter change that's been recommended by the council, which will kind of turn the budget process a little bit differently. We are going to set our priorities with the council in the fall. We will set we will look at our priorities that we already have adopted, see if we need to make some adjustments. We'll do our priority setting, and we will attach to that a 5-year financial plan, so we'll have the resources to get to where we hope to go. So that will happen in the fall. So that in the future, if that passes, that's when we would like the most of the public input as we're setting our priorities, so we can really see what the priorities of the council that reflect the priorities of our citizens. So I think that'll be a really good way to get input early on, rather than have the budget prepared, then have you come and kind of react. This will be a way to help shape our budget and shape our priorities. And then the budget that the city manager prepares will reflect strategies to achieve the goals that together we have set. So I think that it's a better process. It sounds better. We'll see how it plays out. But we'll do the introductions. My name's Jan Markison. I am chair of the Finance, Governance, and Ethics Committee and the councilwoman from the 4th District. And let's just start down at the end.
And I'm Michael Brooks from the 5th District and vice chair of the Finance Committee.
My name is Melba Curls. I represent the 3rd District at large.
Russ Johnson, council member from the 2nd District.
Ed Ford, 2nd District at large.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sly James, mayor at large, I guess.
Scott Wagner, 1st District at large.
Dick Davis from the beautiful 1st District.
I'm John Sharp from the 6th District.
Scott Taylor, 6th District at large.
Jermaine Reed from the 3rd District.
Troy Schulte, city manager.
Okay, we will just start with those who have signed in to talk. The first is Greg Lombardi. Welcome.
Thank you.
If you could introduce yourself and tell where you live
Sure.
and the company, the
Yes.
business you represent.
I'm Greg Lombardi. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Aid of Western Missouri. I'm a proud resident of the 4th District. I very much appreciate and can only imagine how difficult it is to put together the budget that you guys have before you, and I think that there's an awful lot of wisdom in the budget. But I also think it misses an opportunity to make a tremendous investment and build on a wonderful project that the city already has going. That anybody who has spent any time in low-income neighborhoods in Kansas City knows that there is a horrible problem with abandoned properties. If you drive through those neighborhoods, what you see is for property after property, the people who are living in the low-income neighborhoods are doing the best that they can, and the properties really look very good. But if you drive any distance, what you see is this, and a lot of it. Sorry, these are abandoned houses. Kansas City has over 7,000 of these abandoned houses. They're magnets for crime, for arson. People break into them, use them for meth labs. They're just horrible cancers on the neighborhood. But the city has an effective means of dealing with these abandoned properties already in place. And it's been built over the course of more than 20 years by a close relationship, working relationship, between the city's housing department under John Wood and the dangerous buildings department under David Parks, neighborhood associations, and Legal Aid of Western Missouri. Under the partnership, Legal Aid uses the Abandoned Housing Act, which we drafted, and it's the only abandoned housing act in the country, to take over abandoned houses with approval of the court and work with private developers to bring those properties up to code and to get them occupied. The cost to the city of this project to turn a house like this into this is about $2,300 per property. And it's a tremendous investment of the city's resources. And the city manager's budget, with all due respect, leaves that flat for this year. And I think that that's a mistake. We're asking for a 2-year ramp up of funding of this work. We're asking for approximately $97,000 of additional funding in the coming year so that we can do more of this work and actually start doing some of this work in the Northland, where there more and more we're seeing some of these abandoned properties, and to ramp up our work in the urban core neighborhoods south of the river. So we are asking for $97,000 of additional funding. We'll come to you for more funding next year. It is a tremendous investment to reduce police costs, fire costs, code enforcement, increase tax revenues, and most importantly, to make the city's urban core and low-income neighborhoods more livable.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, Paul Tancredi. Morning.
Well, I'm Paul Tancredi from Blue Hills neighborhood, and we're now part of the 3rd District and the 5th District in Blue Hills. And I'm here also to speak in regards to the Neighborhood Attorney Program and the city's funding of that program through Legal Aid of Western Missouri. It has proven to be a very effective program in our neighborhood in addressing vacant and abandoned properties. That's for several years, through when Kansas City Neighborhood Alliance was there, through other CDCs that work in our neighborhood like Blue Hills Community Services, and more recently we've developed more strategies in order to address more properties by working, we've addressed more strategies to use the Abandoned Housing Act to work on more properties. And also they're able to bring other things other than Abandoned Housing Act, receivership actions, things that address chronic nuisance properties, abandoned properties, and vacant properties, which the need for that has increased because of the foreclosure crisis and what happened with some of the predatory loans and people losing homes in the Blue Hills neighborhood. For me, if there's an increased need, I think it's apparent that there's an increased need in our neighborhood, and I think it would be the same thing in other neighborhoods. We have our housing and real estate meeting once a month where we talk about, we have a list of maybe 20 properties that get on our list of chronic nuisances or properties that something has to be done. And we work with our legal aid attorneys, with Jeff Williams and Peter Hoffman, and they always have, we always make decisions together as a neighborhood, working with them on what are we going to do about this property. And one recent thing that's happened is one of the properties in our neighborhood that was kind of in foreclosure limbo, where the bank had a right to foreclose but never really took possession of the property, and it would be impossible for codes to really enforce anything on the property. And it was with one of those entities that just was one that was impossible to find no matter what you did. But we got litigation started on that property, and through that litigation we've actually finally found this entity, and now they're ready to work out something to settle that case that's going to result in more than half a dozen properties in other neighborhoods to also, take that first step from out of foreclosure limbo into being possessed by a rehabber that's going to fix that property up and get it, make it a viable tax-producing property in the neighborhood. So I think there's an increased need, and if there's an increased request, I think it's something that's well-deserved, and it's an effective program. It's been effective for Blue Hills, and I think that when you hear from the other budget hearings, you might find from other neighborhoods that it's also effective for them.
Great, thank you, Paul. John Fierro.
Good morning, John Fierro, President and CEO of the Mattie Road Center, resident of the 4th District, and a member of the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts. I'm here to speak in support of the City Manager's recommendation to provide $200,000 for staff for the Office of Cultural and Creative Services, as well as $50,000 for the Film Commission and $75,000 for the Arts KC Fund. For the last 40 years, Mattie Road Center has been promoting arts and culture as a tool for neighborhood revitalization in Kansas City's West Side, as well as providing arts education opportunities for children. Arts and culture have a direct economic impact of $273 million in the Kansas City region, with 60% of the cultural amenities located in Kansas City. Approximately 60%, or 164 million, of that 273 million are direct economic expenditures in Kansas City, Missouri. There are 19,027 workers in creative industries in Kansas City, Missouri, including designers, artists, musicians, writers, and many others in a wide range of businesses. These individuals and their businesses in Kansas City, Missouri contribute $2.8 billion annually in revenues and $1.41 billion annually in exports to our local economy. We have seen the value of arts in the Kansas City's West Side. We opened up a community art gallery about 15 years ago, before all the quaint restaurants started to emerge, such as the Bluebird, the West Side Cafe, Chazelle. Now we see the economic investment that has created, that has resulted from arts being available in our community. And we've also utilized arts to keep kids safe after school. We probably serve over 10,000 children a year from not only the urban areas, but the suburban areas, who are coming to utilize arts as a way to understand different cultures. So it's a way to bring people together. I would ask those that are in attendance, that are in support of the City Manager's recommendation, to please rise. So in conclusion, again, we thank you for your leadership. We understand that you have some tough decisions to make. Want to thank Councilwoman Markison, who is also part of the Mayor's Task Force for Arts, for her leadership, and once again ask you to support the City Manager's recommendation for the Office of Cultural and Creative Services, as well as the Film Commission and the Arts KC Fund. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Next is Mike Burke.
Thank you, and good morning. Mike Burke, Chair of the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts. Want to thank a number of people, virtually everybody in front of me here. Mayor, thank you very much for appointing the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts and having the courage to support us over the last 2 years in our endeavors. Jan Markison, thank you for taking all of your time to be on the steering committee and attend the numerous meetings. City Manager Schulte, thank you very much for putting some money in the budget to start implementing what I think is one of the most important strategic documents that this council has approved and endorsed. And I call it a strategic document because it is a strategy for neighborhoods, it's a strategy for youth, it's a strategy for economic development, it's a strategy for quality of life. And we've already had inquiries from other cities around the country wanting to look at our strategy and see how we're implementing it. So we will have a lot of eyes on this implementation. We've already started some of the process of implementation and working with Mark McHenry and his staff on an expanded summer youth program for the arts, and we hope to also have some private donations to help sustain that. We've already started getting the word out nationally. I do have to laugh. Day before yesterday is one of the more significant announcements in the appointment and nomination of Jane Chu as director of the NEA. That is huge for Kansas City. I do have to laugh at one of the snarky comments from one of the coastal newspapers saying, a theater manager from the Midwest, as if we can't have a level of culture in Kansas City that exceeds and vies for attention with the rest of the country. I'll leave you with one more thought. The cities of this decade and next that are going to prosper are those cities that can grow, keep, attract, nurture, train, and steal talent. We are in worldwide competition for talent of all type. If you're a Cerner and have 15,000 jobs to fill, and you're going to fill them from around the country and around the world, and you mention to somebody on either coast, Kansas City, and you get a little shrug, that's not what they want. What they want is mention Kansas City quality of life, arts, leisure, schools, and say, boy, that's where I want to go. I'll leave you with one anecdote. CEO I talked to not long ago talked about the difficulty sometimes of transferring people to Kansas City. He said, but even a bigger problem that we have is when we have to transfer somebody out of Kansas City. They don't want to live. That's what the strategy of the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts does. Thank you so much for including the seed money to get the Office of Cultural and Creative Services off the ground and the film office. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, John. John Stevens, you're up.
Good morning. John Stevens. I'm the interim president and CEO of the Kansas City Convention and Visitors Association. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts as a member as well. And I want to cover a little bit more of the broad impact as it relates to creating America's creative crossroads. And the investment and the recommendations from the city manager and the budget that is proposed is incredibly vital. And it truly is an arts investment, because for business development, economic development, as you've heard, it's incredibly important. One of the main indicators of businesses relocating to Kansas City is creativity and innovation. And that is an immediate at the core of the creative crossroads in the arts and culture and what we're trying to accomplish in Kansas City. Additionally, from the tourism side, we're starting to experience some great success. And I can tell you from quantitative data that for the first time, probably ever, the number 1, number 2, and number 3 reasons that tourists visit Kansas City and that conventions select Kansas City are creativity, unique, authentic experiences, and arts and culture. So if you want to make an investment in Kansas City, and I know you have many, many competing important interests in this budget, and they're all vital for neighborhoods, communities, downtown, everywhere. But the investment in the arts and culture side of this also transcends just the arts. It goes to business, it goes to conventions, and it goes to tourism. And tourism is an amazing economic, in 2012, taxes generated from tourism in Kansas City were enough to fund the fire department and the Parks and Rec department completely. So it is a very vital part of our business and the economy and the future of Kansas City. Thank you very much for your time.
John, you're doing a great job.
Don't tell him that.
I know.
He's looking for a raise.
Could one of the staff ask for the another sign-in sheet? We're kind of at the end of this sign-in sheet. John Utz.
Good morning. My name is John Utz. I'm here as a member of the Board of Directors of the Community Assistance Council, sometimes referred to as CAC. We sit in South Kansas City at about Blue Ridge Boulevard and 109th. And we served last year 1,200 families. We're a social services agency, and we have a traditional food pantry. We also provide a clothes closet. We provide blankets. We provide emergency housing assistance and utility assistance, some transportation assistance. We partner with the Hickman Mills School District and Harvesters with the backpack snack pack, program to provide meals on the weekend to families. And I'm really here simply to thank you. We've been allocated community development and block grant monies in the past. That's really important to us. And we're a bit unusual, I think. I can't say unique, but we're a bit unusual in that we serve, in terms of our geographic footprint, we serve mostly the Hickman Mills School District, and I think a pretty important part of that community. And again, I just want to tell you, number one, how grateful we are for that money, and number two, to tell you how important it is to us. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Jessica Ray. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Ray. I'm president of the Pendleton Heights Neighborhood Association in the north corner of the 3rd District. And I'm here this morning to ask you to give additional support to neighborhood infrastructure and support for neighborhoods in the urban core, specifically through programs that will save our houses versus tearing them down. As you heard, some support from legal aid. We've worked a lot with legal aid on moving several houses to ownership. It's obviously cheaper to save them than to tear them down, and so we would ask that more resources be spent on saving homes in the urban core than demoing them. I'm also on the vacant lots task force, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, that people who want to live in the urban core, as more people come back to the urban core, they don't want a new suburban style home, they want a historic home, and we keep tearing them down and complaining about having vacant lots to mow. So let's do things that save our houses and revitalize them and attract more people back to the urban core. In addition, we also support bicycle and pedestrian initiatives that will connect neighborhoods, make them more walkable and friendly for this new generation who doesn't want to drive everywhere, that wants to be close to everything, and anything we can do with bike lanes and better sidewalks and fewer curb cuts to make it safer and more connected in the urban core for those bicycles and pedestrians are very important. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Jessica. I hope Rita Carr. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Retta. I'm an artist in the Kansas City area, and I've lived here for about 25 years or so. About 10 years ago, I started an initiative called Art from the Start, and the premise is to involve artists in design. Recently, I made contact after it was too late, maybe, with some city officials regarding the streetcar project. And the idea that I came up with as an artist is to put some mechanisms at each trolley stop so that the public can charge their phone. Now that is arguably art. You could turn it into art, but it comes from a creative mind. And I think there's many missed opportunities because artists are not at the design table. They're not at the drawing board. They're not a part of the community, so to speak. They don't fit in with engineers. They don't fit in with architects. They're less than. But I think that they're much more than when it regards the community, when it regards the heart and the services they can provide. So my plea is that we can all work together and that we can come to some understandings that there needs to be more provided to the taxpayer. There needs to be more provided to justify the taxes. We can do that as a team, and I would be happy to participate.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. That completes the 2 sign-in sheets I have. I don't know, are there any more? Is there anyone who did not have an opportunity to sign in or who would like to make some comments? Kimberly?
Is
This is too tall for me, sorry. Kimberly Reed, a resident of the 2nd District and member of the Municipal Arts Commission. And I'm going to follow up with what John and Mike spoke about. Before I get into some of the statistical information, I want to tell a quick story. A couple weeks ago, my husband and I traveled to Philadelphia. And I know some of you have been. And the minute we got there and we checked into the hotel, the staff was really quick to give us a map of the neighborhood and say, these are all of the terrific arts activities we have here in downtown Philadelphia. We have this district, we have shows, plays, theater, music happenings, opera, ballet, etc. And there's museums. And you can go to the Constitution Center and you can see the Liberty Bell, and these things are open on the weekends, so we try to accommodate our tourists. I thought it was interesting that the staff at the hotel told us that right from the get-go, in addition, of course, to all the nearby restaurants and what the hotel had to offer. That message was very evident, and I don't know that we have the same welcoming mentality here in Kansas City. I hope that we do, and I hope that the CBA does that. But it really hit home to my husband and I because we're paying so much attention to what we're trying to do here in Kansas City. This past week, Mike mentioned the achievement of Dr. Chu. The other thing that you might have not known is 2 days ago, the Washington Post ran an article on traveling to Kansas City and all the free things to do here. That article is being put out on the Associated Press at the moment, and other newspapers are picking it up and running it across the country this weekend. And in it, they promoted the tourism aspect, but also a number of our museums, specifically the World War I Museum, even though it's not free, as well as our music and jazz, and of course our barbecue. And I thought that really rang home and hit home for those of us who saw it here. And it's a great testament to what we have to offer to our tourists as well as our residents. I'm going to leave you with a quote, and one of you will recognize this quote because one of you said it. Arts and culture are integral to Kansas City's identity and success, as evidenced by the regional and national recognition our community has garnered for more than a century, in addition to our emerging reputation as Kansas City's creative crossroads. As I like to say, play to our strengths. Those last 4 words are what I'm asking you to do, is to play to our strengths, strengthen our arts community. And that quote was from Mayor James.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, we'll hear from each of our council members, and then we'll give the mayor the last word. So we'll hear from him. He'll wrap it up. So, Michael, do you want to start?
Put me on the end. I don't have a whole lot to say. Let me just commend those of you that came and echo the sentiments that have already been made. I think the 2 issues that kind of been prominent today kind of speak to how wide-stretching our job is as it relates to a council when you talk about the great things going on with the arts and some of the terrible things that are going on in neighborhoods, and how can we celebrate one but also work on doing things better when it comes to the neighborhoods. I'm grateful for this council, and again, I think I've said it every year, that I don't think we all, any of us, are just focused on our own district, but looking at the city as a whole and seeing how we can do things differently that affects all the districts in the city as a whole. And so I think that work will continue. The budget is what it is. I would love to see, as you suggested, some more money into dealing with abandoned houses and the vacant properties, because that blight is something that we have to deal with. When we think about Cerner and the 15,000 jobs, if we don't do something with housing, those people are going to go to Lee Summit and Overland Park and other places, and real estate agents, that's where they're going to take them. So we've had some discussions already about how we can address this housing issue, but what the neighborhoods have already been doing, dealing with abandoned homes, I think, again, it is a legitimate plea that we provide some more resources, and if that's possible, I'm hoping we can find the money to do so. So thank you for your comments today.
Thank you again for coming. I, too, am a neighborhood advocate. I think if we have safe and healthy
neighborhoods, that we'll have safe and healthy cities. So we want to certainly be supportive of that. Economic development is a high priority of mine. I hear that everywhere I go. I'm at large, but I hear it everywhere. And the 3rd District does have a lot of vacant property, probably more than any other district, more vacant and abandoned properties. I think that needs to be addressed as well. I was just in Jefferson City this past week, and with the Chamber and also with Missouri Municipal League, and we went, talked with and heard from our legislators and our leaders, both in the House and the Senate. And I think we can work together and be on the same page as far as some of our school district initiatives that we have and other issues as well. So we've got a lot on our plate, but we can do it. And again, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out this Saturday morning. I want to talk a little bit about an important part of the budget, which a lot of people don't necessarily focus on, but we do have the water department as part of our budget. And this budget does include water rate increases and sewer rate increases. But on the water side, I kind of want to focus something that's not really talked about much. But our water department has really came a long way from, in many ways, of improving how it's doing business. And one of the key things it's doing is it's engaging in a program of starting this year to replace 28 miles of water mains every year. And that's 1% of our system. We have 2,800 miles of water lines. And so this will allow us to start focusing on the water lines that need to be replaced. They went over the system with a microscope, literally. The data analysis has been very thorough. They probably know more about this system now than they ever have in the history of the system. They have rated it on a scale of what is most likely to fail and what would be the impacts of such a failure. Obviously, the number of households that would be impacted, the street conditions, et cetera. And through that, they know which water lines to take on next. And they're between now and the end of this year, there will be 28 miles of water lines replaced. The engineering is well underway, and the contracts will start being issued this year. And they're going to do it again next year and the year after that. And so with that in mind, we have made a lot of progress towards understanding the needs of our water department, putting in place the right leadership team and the right mechanisms to improve the way we're doing things. Is more improvement needed? Absolutely. It'll take a generation at 28 miles a year. It'll take a generation for us to really get a handle on our water lines so that they're not as disruptive when they fail. But we're heading in the right direction, and that's important because in the April election, you'll be asked to approve a set of authorization for water bonds. That money is critical for us to be able to continue a systematic water main replacement program and the other improvements that are required. So I urge you to think about, if you want to make our water system better, help us put together the right financial means to do that by voting for this water bond on the April ballot. Thank you.
Couple of comments. No one had mentioned snow removal today. I think there's a consensus the city did a very good job with the last 10-inch snowfall we receive. I know staff worked very hard to clear the streets, arterials, residential, etc. But we've already blown through our snow budget for this year. I think we're about $1 million over already. Obviously, we have no control over Mother Nature, but when folks talk to you about different budget concerns, they always want to make sure once they get out of their driveway, they can get to work. So that needs to remain a priority in terms of funding. One concern I have about the budget, I'm on the Health Commission, and each of the safety net providers, save one, are taking almost a 3% cut. And that's because we need to fund the ambulance service, which is concerning. The health department is actually getting cut 6% because I think there was a mistake when the budget was made that they intended to cut the health department 2.9% also, but because of the grants they get, they're actually going to be receiving about 6% less in safety net funds. So we need to take a look at that and see if there's not another way we can fund the increase our ambulance service needs other than the safety net providers.
Well, thank you all for being here this morning. There's just a couple of things I was going to mention. One was related to some of the neighborhood comments that Mr. Lombardi made and that Jessica made just a little bit ago. Previously, in our business session about the budget, I had mentioned the need to perhaps make sure that we keep the number of codes enforcement officers we have, even if it means cutting a little bit out of our strategic demolitions. And I won't dwell on that since I did that at another time, but one thing, and I'll probably take another time to do that, but just for the mayor. But anyway, one of the things that I do want to point out with regard to legal aid and the desire to expand their services, and on the face of it, I don't have an issue with that. But one thing that I'm always concerned about is the system. How does doing something here affect everything else down the line with respect to getting houses back in production and getting people in them? One of the issues that we have on that point is simply the fact, do we have folks who are ready to receive those properties once you have an Abandoned Housing Act move, and are they ready to put someone in there? My experience has been that that is a very inexact process at best, where you have some individuals who are ready to take on a redevelopment and then sell it, or who may have already identified an owner-occupant to go in there. So I think before we say, let's spend more money in this way, we have to also have the result ready. And that is have people who are ready to receive those properties and who are ready to immediately go to work to fix those properties, who have the financing available to do it and to actually get the job done. Could that happen? Absolutely. Is it happening? Kinda, sorta. But I think that's one thing that we would have to be very certain of before we move forward in that regard. The other thing was just related to the arts. I appreciate the Army that is mobilized today to be here. General Burke, you've done a good job, but I also want to bring up, and it actually may be something, Mike, that you may be aware of, and it was this actually was sparked by the comment Ms. Reed made about Philadelphia. Well, there's another thing going on in Philadelphia that several of us have been working to emulate, and that is their mural program. And you may be aware in Philadelphia that for the last 30 years, they have developed murals as a way of dealing with urban blight, graffiti abatement, and really a way to beautify their city. And now they have over 3,000 of those murals. And it's a great way to not only deal with some of those blight issues, but one of our challenges here in Kansas City is, what do you do with the youth who need positive outlets, who need ways to take the talent they obviously have and forgive the euphemism, use it for good and not evil. That's something that we have been working through with Porter Arneal from our Municipal Arts Commission. And I think, Mike, you're aware of that effort as well. And of course, the mayor's office has been aware of that as we've tried to take their youth activities and expand an arts component, which you won't see in this budget because we know we've got to go out and find other funds for that. But I just wanted to mention that just to say that I hear that, and I also think that it is important to see how we can use our arts to provide opportunities for our youth in the city. Because if we want that creativity and talent that, John, you mentioned before, we've got to create avenues for that. So we will do our best to do that. Thanks again for coming.
I'd like to start by saying I think the city manager, the mayor, and the staff have done a great job in putting together a proposed budget that I think maximizes our resources and addresses an awful lot of our problems. I'm impressed with the recommendation on the arts and will support it. I'm also very pleased that we were able to accomplish the improvements in pensions and get as much done as we're getting done in just 1 year. But I'm also concerned about what the budget doesn't do, and my biggest concern is the vacancies that we're going to leave open because in order to fund some of these things. And my great fear is that some of the programs that we've made some improvements on are going to pay the costs. I share my first district councilman's concerns about inspections. It's a very big deal north of the river. Reducing the staff available for that will be a real problem that we'd like to see addressed. I'm concerned about the problems of weeds. It could be worse this summer if we've got fewer people filling those jobs. I'm also concerned that next year the progress we've made on snow removal could be actually set back by not replacing positions. So that's my major concern about the budget. But again, I think we've done a remarkable job in maximizing our resources, and I don't have a single recommendation on how to change that.
Well, thank you very much. I also am impressed with the testimony on the need to adequately support the arts here in Kansas City, and particularly the testimony dealing with how that helps promote tourism. Because every tourist that comes here, every person who comes here for a convention or a meeting like that, that's new money to our economy. It costs us very little to service those folks while they're in town, but they bring money into our economy, so it's kind of like found money. And I think it's important we realize that. And that is one of the things that I really appreciate about our staff, is that they are so aggressive and have been so successful in seeking our fair share of federal funding and also state funding, although we've got a little ways to go on the state, particularly on funding for public transportation. But several of us were in Jefferson City much of this week. As many of you know, our colleague, Councilwoman Jan Markison, is head of the Missouri Municipal League, and we had our annual legislative conference, and then the Chamber of Commerce also had a visit to Jefferson City. So Councilwoman Markison, Councilwoman Curls, Councilman Wagner, Councilman Reed, and I were all down there. And one of the things that the Chamber was pushing, and many of us are, was for the state to receive this federal money that would allow expansion of the Medicaid program to cover so many of our fellow Missourians who right now have no health insurance coverage at all, and the feds pay for the whole thing. They pay 100% of it for, I believe, 3 years, and then after that, always pay at least 90% of it. But many in the legislature want to turn down that money because of philosophical objections to the Affordable Care Act. Well, we don't tend to do that here in Kansas City. We are seeking federal funding. We are seeking our fair share of federal funds to help our people, and our staff has been very successful in doing that on things like the money for the initial streetcar, on money for many road and bridge improvements, on the SAFER grants we've received to fund additional firefighters. So before we seek voter approval for taxes, I think we have to show that we're doing everything we can to get our fair share of state and federal funding, and I think our staff is doing that, and I think this council and this mayor support those efforts and are not going to be turning down that money because of some philosophical objection to a particular federal program.
All right. Thank you. On the first of all, I want to thank everybody that came out on a Saturday morning to testify. We appreciate all of your testimony. Also want to thank city staff. We have a lot of city staff here as you look around, and that shows, I think, a strong commitment to city staff listening to your input as well. So, a lot of people are taking notes on everything that's being said, so we appreciate that. The comments on a couple of miscellaneous comments. I'm not repeating what's been said, but I think the legal aid testimony we appreciate very much. That's a very cost-effective program that you're suggesting. You're suggesting another $97,000, which we'd have to find and cut from somewhere in the budget. And I'm willing to look at that, but that would mean somebody else would be cut for that same amount. So that's something we'll have to look at. But the Arts Commission, I want to, we've had several people to come out and support this. I want to not only thank the individuals that showed up this morning, but also emphasize that this has really been a collaborative effort with the community. We've had hundreds of citizens involved in this effort. This hasn't just been a small group. This has been a real grassroots level meeting. Mayor should be commended for getting this started. Mike Burke, great job on chairing it. I know Jim Giles in your office, Mayor, has been a big part of all the community meetings. And it's really been a way to involve the entire community, whoever wanted to be involved in this process. And from it, these recommendations have been made. And I think it's important for the general public that hasn't been involved, maybe some of the people that are seeing this being proposed and hearing about it now, maybe for the first time, to know that these are very strategic decisions that have been made in the budget and based on a very strategic plan that's been presented to us that we all agreed with. This takes into account not just the promotion of arts. We've heard about the tourism aspect, but there's an educational aspect, which I think is very important. Having a 10-year-old son that's involved in singing, dancing, and acting in a lot of different venues in our community, I've seen firsthand the very positive benefits from an educational standpoint. It really does complement schoolwork on a daily basis, because I think it really helps the children to grow their, increase their horizons and really look at things in a much different way. So I think this is very important from that aspect. But from an economic development aspect, I want to talk about for just a second, because I can tell you, John Sharp and I were at a meeting just yesterday out south at a 6th District meeting that we have every month with our constituents. We had a report from the EDC, and this was really a report on a completely different topic, but there was one comment made I want to share with you, and the report was really about all the new companies locating to South Kansas City that we've worked on as a team, as a council, and the mayor has been very hands-on. We've had over 4,000 new employees in the 6th District in the last couple of years, added through about 12 to 14 or 15 job announcements. Some of these are major announcements or expansions, and about $190 million in investment, new investment in the city of Kansas City in just that short time period, which is probably near a record, if not. And then that doesn't even take into account the major Cerner announcement, which will potentially be up to 15,000 new jobs and investment. But the comment that I thought was telling from the EDC staff was in some of these deals, when they've talked to companies, they were kind of telling us what they're hearing from companies. They like a lot of aspects about Kansas City, but they said the certain things that we think are very important, such as having available space and other factors. They have choices in other cities, but what's catching their attention are some of the extra things. They said they hear from CEOs that they want a city where when employees are done, there's something to do at night, some activities to go to, and that's really the arts in my estimation. We have some great sports teams. Some are better than others in certain years, but I think we're on a roll right now. But the arts is extremely important, because there are a lot of different avenues. We have a great existing arts community, and I think we've been recognized many times over. But I think this announcement that Mike mentioned this week with the NEA appointment by the President of the United States really puts Kansas City at the top of the list, I think, if we weren't already near the top as an arts community. So I think this small amount of investment is important from an economic development standpoint, but the other part of it is the Film Commission position we talked about, just as an example. That's a very small investment in one staff person, but we heard numerous stories of, there are a lot of TV shows, movies being filmed all over the world now. Nothing is done centrally in Hollywood or New York as it was in the 90s. It's all over, and they're looking for new markets. They're looking for low-cost markets, which we fit into compared to some of the Los Angeles options and other cities, world cities. But they're also looking for a synergy, and I think with that film commission position, that would provide a conduit, and that's what's missing from the equation. We're losing out on millions of dollars in investment in our city by not having that. And I think the investment of the other positions and the other investments are, you could say the same thing, and we could talk about that for a while. But I think this is very important. I support it fully, keeping this in. And what I like about it is it's been very strategic. So this is not just let's put aside some money and figure out how we're going to use it. We're ready to go once this is funded. So I encourage everybody, and I think we're all very supportive. But let's make sure we get this passed. Thank you.
Well, I too would like to say thank you to everyone who's come today and participated in this, I guess you could say, short budget hearing on a Saturday morning. Certainly your voices have been heard, and that's our job is to listen to you as we work through $1.4 billion budget. And certainly a big thanks to our staff who have spent many Saturdays at City Hall and in many offices and going through the budget, working with the city manager and then all of the departments. So a big thanks to everyone who's did some heavy lifting here. And now as it's coming to us as a full council. I do share some concerns about the budget, as many of my colleagues have pointed out, with many of the cuts that we have across the board in some of the departments, from general services, public works, our neighborhood department, and general public safety, and some other departments. They do, for me, I have concerns about them just based off the fact that they do cut some positions that really affect some of the services that we have here in our city. If it's codes or if it's traffic lights or if it's something, they are concerned to me. As some of the concerns or some of the testimony that we've heard today about vacant lots and making sure that we can repopulate the urban core and make sure that we repurpose many of those homes that are in the urban core are certainly a great deal of concern to me as well. So those are my concerns. We still, I have many more as well, and I also do think that some of the things that have been presented in the budget are good. And we've got a couple of more public testimonies, and next week, as I'm sure the chair will point out, we'll be at Mohawk in the heart of the 3rd District, where we're partnering with the 4th District for the public budget hearing, and certainly invite you all there. And hopefully we'll get more people that we can hear from. So thank you so much.
I will quickly, if I can, have the staff who are here quickly just stand, recognize them for their hard work on the budget process. Go ahead, guys, stand up. They've done a tremendous amount of work, and it's a difficult budget, but I did want to recognize their hard work. Also, the other city employees who are here, who have taken time and out of their weekend to come and listen and talk about the budget. So I'll turn it over to the mayor, but I wanted to recognize the great work of our staff.
I agree with the manager regarding the work of the staff. It was a very instructive, very efficient operation working on this budget. I try to reduce things to fairly low common denominators, and just in my own personal budget, I know that if I'm running short of money, I either need a raise or to cut expenses, and it's pretty clear I ain't getting a raise.
No.
I'll take yours.
I got one.
But we have to cut the expenses. But what we really need to do is, because we have so many good things going on right now, but also a number of challenges, what we really need to do is to find ways to get other people's money. we need to have an increase of revenue that doesn't come from taxes, which means that we have to maximize the return on the investments in those things that are going to create that revenue. The arts is certainly something that has the potential to increase revenue over a period of time, and I think moving forward as things get more coordinated and more fund flows to them, they will have that capacity. But it's something that we have to be purposeful about, and it's not totally an economic development issue. It is for the good of the body and the soul, but in addition to that, it is an important economic development issue. All things go together. Those things have an impact on whether or not we're able to repopulate the city, but other things have that impact as well. Education, we're going to have that debate this year. 2014 is going to be an extremely interesting year. Education is going to be at the forefront of those conversations. And although this isn't a budget item per se, it has a huge impact on our budget, because to the extent that there is a perception that education is not top drawer in the city, it impedes our ability to attract new residents and build a tax base and keep neighborhoods solid and strong. So we have to make sure that we're getting the correct information out on education, regardless of whether or not it is a direct budget item. It is clearly an indirect budget item. We're going to have the conversation on huge investments in terms of streetcar, something that feeds right into something that Mike Burke said. We are in worldwide competition for talent, and that is absolutely true. And I get to travel in my job around and talk to mayors from around the country and the world, and believe me, we're in worldwide competition for talent. During the Irish Fest, we were talking about with their political folks who were here, how they are dying because they educate their kids and their kids just go as soon as they get out of college. They do not come back to Ireland. They go someplace else. They see that as a huge problem. We're in that competition. We're trying to get their kids and competing against everybody, and that means that we have to have cities that are being built for the next wave, not necessarily for the current one. So streetcars will be important there. The airport conversation will be important. It will be resolved. Nobody will have to lose an arm or a leg. There's a lot of distance between doing absolutely nothing and doing everything. And someplace on that continuum, there is something that will make sense to most people. There will be some people who won't give up. They will die on that sword of convenience or whatever. And there are others who won't give up on the other extreme of it's got to be a new terminal. But someplace between the 2 points, there's going to be something that we can have a conversation on and hopefully agree on. And that's got to be something that we do this year. RNC will have an opportunity to show people from around the entire world, if we're able to land that convention, who we are, which should inure to the benefit of our arts, should inure to the benefit of our budget, should inure to the benefit of sustaining our ability to attract other people's money to the city over the long term. So that's something that we're working very diligently on. Now, on the other side, we absolutely positively have to do something to reduce the number of violent crime acts in this city. And I wish I had a magic wand and could tell you exactly what that is, but I do think that the best thing that we have going for us right now is the KC Nova program, and we're going to continue to fund our share of that as partners with Jackson County, a prosecutor, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the Kansas City Police Department, UMKC, social service agencies, probation and parole, both state and federal, et cetera, and try to implement our deferred violence program. It's the only thing that we have on the plate right now that makes any sense, and we've got to implement it fully this year, and hopefully that will drive those numbers down, which should have an impact on neighborhoods. because nobody wants to live in a neighborhood where there's crime, and where housing is bad, and where there are gaps in housing and things that need to be done in housing. It breeds opportunities for crime and criminal activity, so we have to address that. We got a lot of stuff to do and not a tremendous amount of money, but the good news is that we have people in our city who know how to use that money and figure out ways to stretch that money in the best possible ways to accomplish as much as we absolutely can. So we're blessed to have a great finance department and a fairly decent city manager. From Iowa. Just a couple of other things, and then I'll let you out of here. A lot of kudos to what's happened in this city over the past couple of years. And I know that it might be subtle to some of you, but to me, it's absolutely in our face every day. I don't know what it was like before and don't care to revisit that, but I can tell you it seems to me that we have the best group of people assembled here who are willing to do things differently. And although we do not always agree, we move the ball forward pretty quickly and pretty well and stay in pretty good touch with each other. But there are changes. There is a desire to offer absolute top quality service. There are processes and works and patches and people in place to try to make sure that we provide the best quality customer service to the citizens of this city as we possibly can. Not perfect, but, I don't know of anybody else that had a Twitter, Facebook budget thingy the other day. It was kind of interesting. I agree with the manager that it was smart to call it off during the snowstorm because I know we wouldn't have talked about any budget while we had plows on the street. But that was a pretty inventive thing to do. City Communications is doing some nice stuff. So please watch it and sign up to do commercials and pay for them. That would be great. But City Communications is doing a very good job of pushing information out. Another way to do that is with KC Momentum, and we need the word to get out on KC Momentum. When people can't personally attend meetings and things of that nature, this is a way for us to get feedback from the community in a fairly real-time basis and to, again, find other ways to communicate with as many people as possible. And that's what we're doing here today, is trying to communicate about issues related to the budget and the city as a whole. So I thank Jan Markison, the chair of Finance Department, for what I can only say is stellar work. She guides our Finance Committee. Did I say chair of the Finance Department?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that'd be a step up.
Yeah, it would be. You'd get paid a lot more. But she guides our Finance Committee extremely well and keeps us on track. To the other committee chairs who are constantly moving the agenda forward, and everybody who works on this council, thanks for what you do. And the city manager and to Randy and his group, outstanding work on this budget. Tough budget. Had to come to grips with the realities of pension, but now that we've done that, do that for a couple years, we'll be fine. But we need to increase our income in this city. And so unless the city can get a part-time job, we need to find ways to get other people to come here and leave money behind, and that's what we're going to be looking for in the near future. So I have nothing else to say. I'll give it back to you, kiddo.
Thank you again for coming, and I think what the mayor alluded to was we're looking at reaching out in every way possible. I think this administration's really embraced technology, so we like these face-to-face meetings. We use Twitter, we use the internet with KC Momentum, so any way we can, we want to get our citizens' feedback. So next week is the same type of hearing at the Mohart Center, right on Linwood. So if you don't know where that is, you should, because it's a beautiful city facility, and that'll be from 10 to 12. The following week is at the South Patrol. So thank you very much for coming. Thanks again to the staff for being here, for working so hard, not just on the budget, but every day they're working hard on behalf of our residents. So thank you for the council aides who are here today. And I'm just proud to be part of the government of a city that really is working very, very well on your behalf. So thank you.